part where you might ask, what exactly am I doing in this abandoned pizzeria? Well, that's a simple story that started earlier today. So, how's my costume look? Convincing, right, Yello? What are you wearing? Of all the characters you could have picked, you chose...
They're all big characters in wheelchairs, okay?
Alright, sorry, I didn't mean to critique the choice, it's just... Where's Green? Turns out, Green managed to get himself stuck in virtual reality. Me being the only other person in the house with a VR headset, I went in to retrieve him. Alright, Green, where do you get off to? Well, knowing Green, he only really plays games like Surgeon Simulator 2, and Five Nights at Freddy's! Ow. Alright, let's figure out what's going on. Bootleg Freddy? Bootleg Bonnie? She's the exact same. Bootleg Foxy? I'm in a FNaF fan game! And a bad one! It's that time of the year again. Five Nights at Freddy's. I would hope you know what that is, but if you don't, Five Nights at Freddy's is a horror franchise about haunted animatronics that try to kill you while you're stuck in an office. You might ask, why don't you just get up and leave? And the simple answer is, don't think about it. The not so simple answer requires watching 59 episodes of Game Theory, which is a fate I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. My personal theory is the really strong duct tape theory. There are a lot of FNaF games, but I'm only going to count the ones that Scott made. The horror ones. No, the ones that are actually scary. No, the ones that don't deviate massively from the formula. Scott calls them FNaF games that aren't FNaF World or the April Fool's FNaF 3. So yeah, on this episode of YuxaVS, I played all 6 major Scott Cawthon FNaF games, and so the pacing is going to be slightly different to compensate. The only categories we have today are, as always, in order of least to most important, story, design, gameplay, jump scares, and miscellaneous. That's 5 categories. For 6 games, we're going to have to go a little faster than usual. Back to it! So, where was I? Alright, Green is somewhere in this building. Problem is, it's really hard to see anything that isn't 5 feet in front of you. That's a problem with most horror games though. The pitch darkness makes it spookier. Can't have tension without removing control. As I was saying, most horror is a pattern of tension and release, and a jump scare is the easiest way to achieve the release. It's also incredibly cheap, like a comedian tickling you to make you laugh. It works, but afterwards you just feel cheated out of something more terrifying. Also, it sucks for people with issues related to loud noises. Going in order, we'll start with the first game. This one has a few advantages in that it doesn't have to bend around the existing story, and was also made with one of the most powerful motivators on the market, spite. FNaF 1 is an almost entirely self-contained story. If you used just the information given in the game, you'd be able to explain about 70 to 85% of the questions the game was asking. It builds on the mystery night on night, and is another path to build tension night on night. Plus, the phone guy. It's phone guy. Design refers to all general areas of the game, so let's talk about the environment and the characters. The FNaF 1 location might be my favourite location purely from an aesthetic standpoint. It balances the ominous nature you need for a horror game with the, yeah, this is a real restaurant aspect of an animatronic pizzeria. I'd assume Scott Cawthon made the kitchen lack a camera because modelling kitchen equipment would have been annoying, and I respect that. The other half of the design is animatronics. So how are the 5 animatronics? Well, obviously nostalgia plays a part, but these 5 are all very good. Freddy has to be my favourite because of how iconic this design has become. My least favourite is a tie between Chica, which is saying something because she's still a good design, or Golden Freddy, because of something I'll get into later. In terms of gameplay, there's a simple loop in the first game. You only have 4 major threats, those being 4 animatronics. 2 animatronics come from either side, with your main methods of defense being the door and the camera. Doors can keep out any threat, but you need to manage your power, which drains when the doors are in use. Power drains faster every night. You might suggest just waiting for an animatronic to appear in the window and then closing the door, but this is where Foxy comes in, meaning you need to, at the bare minimum, check on him. And Freddy, who won't appear in the door and is hard to spot on cameras. Loop of 5 nights, plus a bonus 6th, and a custom night even the creator thought was impossible. There's 6 jump scares in this game, 1 for each animatronic, except Freddy who has 2. They range from alright, to get out of my face, to
I've been letting you know we ran out of shredded cheese.
My favourite is probably Freddy's default jump scare for its speed and movement. My least favourite is probably Golden Freddy because, well, it's a JPEG. What is there to be said about the first Five Nights game that hasn't already been said? It's still regarded as one of the best. It doesn't have any gimmicks like future games, and it just does what it says in the tin. Here is Freddy. Spend 5 nights with him. I think the first game has the unfair advantage of coming first. It wasn't designed with sequels in mind like later games were, so it doesn't have to worry about tying up loose ends. Had we stayed at just the first game, a lot of modern horror games wouldn't exist or would be wildly different. I should clean this up. The second game. The one that came out after the first in terms of release date, but not the timeline. This game came out when FNaF was a rapidly growing fandom, and this game was present for what I would like to call the golden age of the FNaF fanbase. A simpler time, where our biggest concerns were, is Mangle a boy or a girl, or who did the Bite of 87? Once again, I am biased for simpler times. FNaF 2 expands on everything the first game set up. You start it, and it seems like a sequel, until you realise the phone guy is back, which is impossible since he died in the first game. There's new animatronics, these ones with facial recognition, designed to stop kidnappers and killers. But why would they need that unless... Wait a second. Where'd Toy Bonnie go? The original cast from the first game comes back, but now they're all withered and noticeably look completely different. Are these the same characters we know? And why is this place so much bigger than the last one? There's no way a company like this could be making a profit. Oh, it's a prequel. There's also a series of death minigames that sets up the infamous Aubergine Gentleman, who we will see very soon. The building in terms of design is pretty close to FNaF 1, but now there's more arcade machines and this spinny whirly thing. It feels like the lighting has taken a little bit of a downgrade, though probably because of the flashlight mechanic. Also, there's just wire clusters everywhere. I don't like it. It's not OSHA approved. Animatronics? Well, let's start with the worst. Also in the name of the interest of one of my viewers who will remain unnamed, I'm introducing the clown warning. These next characters look vaguely like clowns, and therefore I employ the clown warning. Skip to the time on screen, or close your eyes and scream. Either works. Balloon Boy can go to hell. The marionette, or the puppet, or whatever you call it, is a good design, but I've spent 8 years trying to figure out how it moves. The toy animatronics are questionable. Toy Freddy and Bonnie are fine, but what in the hell was known Christian Scott Cawthon thinking with Toy Chica? Seriously, this character has resulted in me seeing things I can never unsee. People seriously exist who want to rearrange this robot's gears. Sickening. Mangle's a cool design though, if a little structurally confusing. Clown warning over, you can open your eyes now. The withered animatronics are cool as hell. Withered Freddy may be slightly underwhelming, and Withered Foxy feels like he listens to Linkin Park, but Withered Chica, and Withered Bonnie especially, they're cool as hell. Also, Golden Freddy is here. My favourite has to be Withered Bonnie, and my least favourite is Toy Chica, because at least Balloon Boy isn't wearing panties in a kid's restaurant. The gameplay loop has changed, but at its core, it's still a loop. The way I'll be breaking this game down is by dividing the characters into normal ones and special ones. The toy animatronics, as well as all the wizards except for Foxy, are normal. For the normal animatronics, you simply need to put the mask on. The main difference between them is the amount of time you have to put the mask on before they attack. The special cases are the Balloon Boy, the Puppet, and Withered Foxy. Balloon Boy is fooled by the mask like the normal ones, but rather than killing you, he wants to disable your flashlight. This may seem pointless until you realise that Withered Foxy's mechanic is attacking you if you don't shine the flashlight into the hallway every now and again. As for the Puppet, it's the dedicated look at the camera character. You need to wind the music box or it will insta-kill you. If you're keeping track, that's 3 things you need to juggle. Last game it was 2. This game has 10 jump scares, 1 for every character except Balloon Boy. They're all pretty okay. The only one I think is properly good is Withered Bonnie and Mangle. Once again, Golden Freddy is my least favourite. He's not a JPEG this time, but he is a flying head. A little silly. There's a bonus mechanic that is possibly one of my favourite mechanics in the entire franchise. Plushies. For every challenge you complete in Custom Night, you get a plushie. I just think that's neat. They don't do that in later games, or UCN. Sucks. Now, of course, there are other ways to release tension in a horror context. A plot-redefining twist, a tense chase scene. Hell, if you abandon the tension, you can go for a whole different type of horror, like psychological horror, or... Analogue horror. I will admit, when FNaF Analogue horror came out for the first time, I was really enthralled, but it became tropey and formulaic fast. Ooh, I was killed and now I haunt the VHS tapes. Really? It works the first time, but it quickly starts to feel boring. Also, if you're gonna use your own characters, just admit you couldn't make a game but still wanted fan art. Whew, that's a spicy take. Probably shouldn't put that one on Twitter. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 released right as the FNaF wave was beginning to lose momentum. As long as FNaF 3 could increase on the second game, it would solidify the franchise on a level that any other indie game horror franchise would dream of. And it fumbled the bag. Not entirely, FNaF 3 still did really well overall, but instead of knocking the game into the Hall of Fame for all time, it just left people a little underwhelmed. Expectations were just too great for what could be done in the time given. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 takes place 30 years after the events of the first game? The second game? 30 years after the event of something, in the far-off year of something. Every other animatronic we know is gone, except for the one they just found in the back of an abandoned building who looks like this. I don't see anything suspicious about this character. Not at all. Okay, so this suit contains a child murderer, but not just any child murderer. It's that lavender lad again! I told you we'd be seeing him soon. He tried to dismantle the animatronics to end the haunted robots once and for all, only for the souls to escape, attack him, and scare him into wearing what I would refer to as the Iron Maiden fursuit, or as the game calls it, a springlock suit, possibly the worst invention since the invention of planned obsolescence. To give you a quick explanation of how a springlock suit works, imagine an animatronic that is then pulled apart by a series of springs compressing into the corners of the suit. Then you can wear it like a costume. When not in use, the components snap into place and oh no. Yeah, they had a pretty high failure rate. Springtrap is now the only animatronic left as you finish this story off once and for all. This time, we're not in a pizzeria. We're in a haunted house attraction based off the horrors of the restaurant. The floors are littered with chunks of the FNaF 1 animatronics, now just lifeless husks discarded across the floor. It's very green and grimy, playing up the spooky factor. Animatronic-wise, let's start with the Phantoms. The Phantoms are all pretty much the same principle. Pre-existing animatronic, but grimy, and in the case of one or two of them, missing a limb. Not very special, and as a matter of fact, they're kind of lazy? The fact that we have FNaF 1 Chica, but FNaF 2 Freddy and Foxy still irritates me to this day. Moving on to Springtrap. Yeah, he's a good design. He's missing a few things that are a bit odd since he's supposed to be a human crushed inside a robot, like bones. And well, the anatomy isn't perfect, but I value a good design over realism. Where FNaF 3 stumbled was gameplay. Compared to what came before, FNaF 3's gameplay loop is kind of bad. You have to use audio lures to keep Springtrap on this side of the building and away from you. However, over time your systems will start to fail. If video fails, you won't know where Springtrap is. If audio fails, you can't lure him anymore. If oxygen fails, you start blacking out and seeing things. All pretty simple. The Phantoms don't actually kill you, instead they will occasionally appear on your monitor and then jump scare you in the office, knocking systems offline. Make sense? All clear? Seem a little bit annoying having a bunch of animatronics who will almost certainly jump scare you at least once in a night? Seems like maybe it's designed to stress you out as much as possible so Springtrap can sneak up? Yeah, I'm not a fan. Well, the gameplay loop might not be great, but the jump scares? Also not great. While Phantom Freddy, Chica, Foxy, and Balloon Boy have good jump scares, the Puppet and Mangle just kind of stare at you. And Springtrap himself, his jump scares are rather slow. Like, oh no, he's walking towards me! Kind of kills any tension Springtrap could have when his jump scare feels more like,
Hey, do you know where the rotisserie chickens are?
the best jump scare is actually Phantom Balloon Boy? I think it's funny just seeing him, you know, be spooky. The worst jump scare might actually be Springtrap himself if we're not counting Mangle and the puppet. He's just not very enthused about jump scaring you. FNaF 3 took bold risks with how it chose to present the lore. Risks it shouldn't have taken. The secret minigames needed to get the good ending weird. It starts off strange with clicking on posters. Then it's clicking on weird shadow cupcakes. It can't get weirder, right? So yeah, maybe Scott had an idea for all this lore, but maybe you should have put more meat on those bones. Okay, so I definitely heard something, and using the process of elimination, plus the fact there's only one animatronic that can run, Foxy! Oh my. I was not expecting that. See, you get a lot of this with fan games, and we saw a lot of it in the 4th game. You don't make something scarier by adding teeth, claws, and an industrial amount of withering. Horror should come from the uncanny valley aspect of these characters. They're animatronics. Adding a lot of teeth and sharp bits just makes them seem, well, like an OSHA violation waiting to happen. So the last game left us with a first for the franchise. Text saying, "The End." That meant many assumed FNaF 3 was the end, the final game in a trilogy, right? Five Nights at Freddy's 4, the final chapter! Let me just check the runtime of this video. Oh no. Oh no. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 takes us to the earliest point in the timeline yet, being 1983? Or is it 1987? You're being haunted by nightmares of animatronics. Probably because your brother is harassing you with the mask of one of them. Or because you're scared of the yellow bear guy. Or because you got locked in the back room. Honestly, you're overreacting. It's not like anything actually traumatic happened. Oh. Oh no. Yeah, so we finally get to see the bite of 87. Except, psych, this was the bite of 83. Thanks, Scott. Really helpful. The entire game was a dream. Ooh. Wait a second. Was everything a dream? Little details here and there would lead me to believe... Oh my god, it all makes sense now. It was all a dream. Oh, never mind. Just got retconned. Just this game was a dream. Oh yeah, and this little psychic bear guy says he'll put you back together. That's not ominous at all. Once again, we're not in a pizzeria. We're in more than one place, dear god. You spend the actual nights of FNaF 4 in this absolutely massive room. Seriously, imagine the stop motions you could make on that floor, if it weren't for the giant killer robots lingering outside. The room is pretty nice, but I'm not 100% on the idea of having 2 doors into my room. But then again, it's all a dream. There's also this room, a series of hallways that's used in the Fun with Plushtrap minigame. It's a hallway with a bunch of doors, it's alright. The nightmare animatronics. They're overkill. Massively. But luckily, I'm not judging them from animatronic terms. I'm judging them from nightmare terms. And they're alright, I guess. They're essentially the withered animatronics, fixed, then stabbed 20,000 times. And given comedic amounts of teeth and claws. Even the cupcake has teeth! They're okay designs. Not great, not terrible, not clowns. Could you imagine if they had clown designs? That'd be terrible. FNaF 4's gameplay is what I like to call autistic hell. This isn't me using the term autistic in a derogatory manner. It is a fact that if you are autistic, you're not going to enjoy this game. FNaF 4 forces you to crank that volume slider as high as it'll go, so you're expected to listen out for the tiniest of noise cues to stop the animatronics. Now tell me, if you were to fail to do this, what would happen? A very loud jump scare, you're right! In that situation, do you think an autistic person, most of whom are not fans of sudden loud noises, would have a good time? What I'm trying to say is that I did not like FNaF 4. I'm someone who's very peculiar about audio levels, and it just wasn't a game I could enjoy. Fun with Plushtrap, as mentioned earlier, takes place elsewhere, and is a clever way to reward the player for being good at the game, as if you can get Plushtrap to sit on this X on the floor, you get to skip a few hours of the night. This means that FNaF 4 is a lot like golf, in that the objective is to play as little of it as possible. The difference is golf is something I can tolerate because it isn't screaming at me when I get something wrong. So I was tough on this game, but the jump scares are good, right? Do you like Pac-Man? Because pretty much all the jump scares amount to Pac-Man. Seriously, look, I'll put Pac-Man audio over them. Tell me you don't see what I see. It's nothing against the game, there's just not much variety in these jump scares. It's just, oh, he bites you. And while yes, that is fitting from a lore perspective, couldn't have at least done something else, like a upside down one, or never mind. Almost all of them just pick you up and bite you. For an idea of history, this is the game that caused some people, most infamously PewDiePie, to realize that maybe FNaF was getting a bit stale. Best jump scare? Probably Nightmare Cupcake, just for the sheer audacity of having it. Worst is Nightmare, who is once again a JPEG jump scare. Woohoo. FNaF fans may have noticed I didn't cover the Halloween update. Seeing as it's mostly just a reskin, there isn't much to cover. But in the name of fairness, Jacko Bonnie and Jacko Chica are fun designs. Even if they are incredibly stupid, I will tolerate them. Nightmare Mangle feels a bit like a waste, in that you could have done so much more with this design. A quick clown warning for the next two. Nightmarion is actually cool as hell! He's a fun distortion of the original design into something genuinely a little bit off-putting. Nightmare Balloon Boy? He's got lots of teeth. And big hands. Very scary. Alright, so where's Freddy? He's always the last to activate, so he could be anywhere. But knowing him, it's always the place you least expect. Worth a shot. So if he's not there, then where? What? Why? Whoa. Die! Just wait a second. This is FNaF. The end. Assuming we're in keeping with franchise averages, that gives me about 2 hours before he decides this isn't the end. FNaF World is up next, and wait, what do you mean we're not doing FNaF World? It's the best one! Okay, what are we doing? Oh no. Hey, how are you doing? I'm speaking to one of you in the audience who's going unnamed. I know you don't like clowns. I respect that, and as such, I'm respectfully asking you to entirely skip this segment. Go straight to the next. The last few FNaF games had some vaguely clowny robots, but this one, all clowns, all of them. I don't want you punching a hole in a wall or a phone, so please skip to the time on screen. See you then. So, Five Nights at Freddy's, sister location, the one with the clown robots. Let's begin!
Exotic butters.
Deep underground, where memories sleep. Scott Cawthon wasn't content with 4 games. Or more accurately, people weren't happy with the ending given by FNaF 4 and FNaF World, that being the Dream Theory. People don't like it when their games end with "it was all a dream" endings, turns out. Not unless you make that explicitly clear from the start. So FNaF 5 has the unpleasant task of swerving the franchise in a massively different direction. So how do you justify haunted robots, multiple locations, and technology well more advanced than it should be? Soul Juice. Soul Juice. This game takes place at Circus Baby's Pizza World, which is a sister location, I said the thing, to Freddy Fazbear's. We have no clue where this game goes in the timeline, with it going anywhere from 1983 to 2003, depending on who you ask. I personally say 1983 because everyone around me does, but deep down I feel like it might be later. We play as Michael Afton. That might not be a particularly interesting name, so let me give you some background on him. His sister was killed and haunts the animatronic known as Baby. His brother died by his own hands. His mother wasn't around much, and his father is William Afton, aka the Periwinkle person. Keeping up? Yeah, basically you bumble your way around as a technician who's named Eggs Benedict and has to hide from the robots. Except the robot named Baby, who is helping you, until it's revealed that she was trying to kill you with the long con, and you die. Unless you get the secret ending where you hide in an office like FNaF 1 and oh my god, the little yellow bear is back! But the true ending is you being scooped, and having this pile of robot spaghetti use you as a leathery skin suit up to the surface. I intentionally skimmed about 2 pages of weird lore off this plot synopsis. Sue me.
Exotic butters.
The design of Circus Baby's Pizza World is neat. It's underground and very industrial. It's got a cold aesthetic that complements everything else about the game. It's cold, it's soulless, and it's mechanical. It still can't top the original 2 FNaF games, though. So far, oh god, the animatronics. I don't like clowns much. Not from an I get scared of them, or I am violent around them, but just a general nothingness. I have no strong feelings one way or the other around clowns. Though if anyone compares me to a clown, it is on sight. Let's start with the good ones and get worse as we go. Starting with the best design, Enid. I'm always a sucker for lots of things mashed together forcefully, and Enid is supposed to be that. He's a bunch of robots melding their wires together to create one being and escape the hell they're in. Funtime Freddy and Funtime Foxy are next, both being solid 6 out of 10s. I don't particularly like the panels, but they grow on you. Hand Puppet Bonnie is fun. The mini-arenas are actually good. They're basically tiny puppets, and the lack of panel lines and personality make them a little spooky to look at. Ballora and Baby. Human robots. They're both pretty but I actually prefer Ballora because she fully leans into the human proportions, which does actually look vaguely unsettling for a robot. Baby is worse. Baby earns the honor of being one of the only animatronics that makes me unexplainably violent. So many of the design choices here just make me inexplicably angry. I want to rip her pigtails off. Biddy Bab. I will spare you most of my thoughts on Biddy Bab. I need only say 2 words to make you understand. Skin toddler. Anyways, onto the custom night. The animatronics are, well, yeah, there's not much to say here. Naked Funtime Freddy, Pink Bonnie, no comment. Funtime Foxy recolor. Not very good, most of these. Major misstep.
Exotic butters.
FNAF's sister location is a bit like the Star Wars sequels. The things that came before were hated at the time, so they aimed to swing massively in the other direction in hopes it would make people like them. It didn't. They just made a lot of confusing decisions that hurt the final product. And the kicker is, nowadays the things that came before are seen as better because they aren't this. FNAF's sister location is a free roaming FNAF game. Rather than being in one place for 5 nights, each night sees you going somewhere new and doing something different, like some kind of WarioWare from hell. The minigames see you doing your best each night, and are usually some variation of do this thing while the animatronic tries to kill you. For example, walk down this hallway while Ballora tries to kill you, stabilize the power to the building while Funtime Freddy tries to kill you, and so on and so forth, until the end of the game where there's a secret ending where you can go and play a single night of traditional FNAF. It's nice to see the formula shaken up, but a bit of spice can't save this dish.
Exotic butters.
Jump scares can't save it either. Almost all of the jump scares use the faceplates to their advantage, having the faces split open to reveal the spooky metal faces underneath. It's alright. After 5 games, there isn't much new that can be said. Best? Ballora. Worst? Biddy Bab.
Exotic butters.
Miscellaneous. Well, the custom night wasn't in game day 1. That was added in a patch. Does that count for something? Shows the player slowly degrading every night as their Enid piloted body rots. There's honestly there's a funny show you watch every night about a vampire's marriage trouble that's a metaphor for something else in the game. Honestly, not much to say. Oh yeah, Custom Night retcons FNAF 4 and says it wasn't actually a dream, and the events of the end of that game did in fact happen in 1983, not 1987. Moving on. Alright, so this has all been pretty one-to-one with the original FNAF game. Assuming that's all this is, then that means there has to be a Golden Freddy. Then again, if it's in keeping with the level of originality of the rest of these knockoffs, it'll be, what, Bronze Bonnie? Platinum Chica? Yep, Silver Foxy?
Of course, it's always Foxy.
Stop doing that! Okay, buddy, I'm just here to get my brother and leave. Have you seen him around? So if you're keeping track, descending through the FNAF games have been a lot like descending through the Rings of Hell, getting worse with each one. Now for something completely different. I actually really like FNAF 6. That might shock some, since FNAF 6 is wildly different to FNAF 1 and 2, but there's a simple word that'll explain everything. Tycoon. FNAF 6 seemingly starts off with not that much story. You're franchising a new Freddy Fazbear's location. Pretty simple. Seemingly simple. You start picking up interesting things from behind the restaurant and salvaging them for cash. But there's actually multiple endings this time, something we saw in FNAF 5 and 3, but this time there are more than 2. Going in no particular order, you get the bad ending for not having all 4 animatronics in your building by the end of the week. You get the mediocre ending for doing literally nothing with your restaurant and having a Faz score at 0. You get the blacklisted ending for having the liability rating over 50. You are then blacklisted from the industry for thinking too big. Lose all of your money? Bankruptcy. Purchase the egg baby and see the forbidden files? Insanity. Goodbye. And finally, if you have all 4 animatronics and successfully not do any of these things...
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift.
I'm not going to play the whole
Nor have you been called
thing,
here
but
by the
yeah. The good ending of FNAF 6 leaves the franchise in the best place it's been ending-wise since either the third or first game. That's a feat. The office, if you can even call it that, isn't great. It's one room with 2 vents. No cameras, so this is all you get. I'm not a big fan of it. Though we do get to see this table in the void, which is alright. The Tycoon mode's user interface is pretty good. Not great, but it's enjoyable to look at. It's clearly taken a while to perfect. Animatronics is going to be tough, since the Tycoon mode means I've got a lot of animatronics who are present but non-violent. I'll count them anyway, but we'll start with the actual enemies. Molten Freddy is actually pretty neat. He's not perfect, I like my animatronics with a clear sense of how they locomote, but it's a pretty funky design that looks like metal spaghetti. Oh, and our friend Springtrap is back! What did they do to you? Those paying attention might remember a comment I made, how I value good design over realism. Yeah, Scott clearly didn't realise that and decided to give Scraptrap more human proportions. Unrelated, did you know that Scott Cawthon is historically bad at modelling humans? There's a lot to unpack here, but others have already done videos on it already, so I'm not going to bother going over this again. Also, you call this the Violet Gent? He's not purple at all! Clown warning! You just can't seem to escape them, can you? Scrap Baby is next, and well, it's a lot better than FNAF 5's Baby. It feels like an edgy teenager crammed into a robot. Giant claw, roller skates. Looks like maybe Scrap Baby needs to be kept out of the MCR section of the store. Lefty is... yeah, he's alright. No strong feelings one way or the other, but I will give Lefty props for being the first animatronic to look like an animatronic since the second game. Wow. The rest of the animatronics I'm going to cover in a lightning round. Mediocre melodies. They're all mediocre as the name implies. I like the style they have, and I like all of them except Netbear. The rock stars. Yep, they're animatronics. Chica looks like a duck. Other than that, they're alright. Security puppet. Funtime puppet. Mid. L-Chip. Peak character design. Next. Funtime Chica. Dear God, why did you make this? Some questions were best left unanswered. Music Man. What? Trash and the Gang. The best animatronics in any game ever. Pack up, boys, we found gold. If I missed any, that's a good indication of what I think of them. As I referenced earlier, this game is wildly different to other games, for a multitude of reasons. So it's back to FNAF in the sense that you're stationary in an office, but it's still wildly different in the sense that there's no time limit. A night can go as long or as short as it needs to. Technically FNAF 5 had this, but FNAF 6 isn't free roam. You can't beat a night until all of your tasks are completed. You use this computer both to complete tasks and to defend yourself against the robots. But if a robot gets close, you have to turn off the PC because it makes noise, and also turn off the fan, which also makes noise. Problem is, if the fan is off, you begin to rapidly get hotter, which isn't great for your wretched mortal body. So it's a balancing game between completing your tasks, not making noise, and not dying from heat stroke. Pretty simple. There's also Salvage Mode, a minigame you can do in between nights that forces a new animatronic into your nightly routine, but if you can successfully salvage them, you get bonus cash, so it's all a case of risk versus reward. Actually, I've managed to go this far in the review without mentioning that phrase, so let me make it clear that this phrase is kind of a through line for the franchise as a whole, but it's got a very long script, and I'm trying to talk about things I find neat where possible. Tycoon, baby! Let's go, baby! Tycoon! It's really bare bones. But it's still good, baby. I love me a Tycoon game mode. Let's go! You make money from doing things. Use the money to buy new things that make you more money. If you have a high liability factor, you will get sued, and this is the best part of the game. You can do a series of things that increase your profitability during the day, and if you save money, you can buy upgrades for the night section to make it easier. Casual. Seriously though, I would love an endless Tycoon mode, or an expanded and enhanced Tycoon game. This could have been the whole game, and it would have been instantly my favourite FNAF game. But alas, it's the gimmick. Good gimmick, though. How are the jump scares in this game? Yeah, they're alright, I guess. They all kind of fall victim to the I am approaching you syndrome, where they don't really do much other than just appear rapidly. Best? Scrap Trap? Worst? Lefty? They're all the same to me. Seeing as I've already covered the Tycoon and Easter eggs, what is there left to talk about for FNAF 6? Ultimate Custom Night is not being counted as the same game. But don't worry, the Tycoon and Easter eggs, despite being talked about elsewhere, count for this segment. Screw it. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna say it. You're not scary. You never will be scary again. You've been on a downward spiral for a while, but we all ignored it because we hoped you would get better. But if you want to be a horror franchise with themes of child murder, then why does so much of your merch target children? Time to open up, Night Guard. Cheers. Green?
Hey,
What are you doing here?
I accidentally got stuck in real-time FNaF.
FNaF?
Five Nights at Beige Freddy's. It's like Five Nights at Freddy's,
But Freddy is beige, I figured. How do I get you out?
I guess we just wait for 6 a.m.
How long's that gonna take?
Not that long, it seems. Oh, good. The duct tape is gone.
Duct tape?
The chair had really strong duct tape on it.
I knew it!
Let's go home now?
Yeah, of course. That's it. All 6 are done. If we tallied up the wins under the normal system, it'd look like... which isn't great. Since we got more than 2 games, we're switching the way points work, from first past the post, where winner takes all in a round, to ranked voting. First place gets 5 points, second 4, third 3, fourth 2, fifth 1, and sixth 0. Simple? Simple. Under this improved system, it looks like... well, if we left it here, FNaF 2 would win by a single point. However, there's one other thing I want to do. We're employing the alternative vote, where last place is out until you've got only 2 left. It's the fairest, so in dead last, FNaF 4. The Halloween update and story were both pretty good, but it massively kneecapped itself with the edgelord designs and, more importantly, loud noises. Had it not done this, it might have stood a chance. Even after getting 2 additional points from the eliminated FNaF 4,
Exotic
Sis
butters.
location also didn't stand a chance. Clowns aren't cool. Simple as. FNaF 3 surprises everyone by managing to not come dead last. But still, it's 4th place. Sorry, Springtrap, but there are just some things you can't always come back from. And we encounter a problem. FNaF 6 and FNaF 1 both have 19 points. This means I've got to step in and painstakingly pick a game to FNaF 6. Should have added an Endless Tycoon mode, man. And FNaF 2 takes the win, with 21 to 24. This doesn't mean FNaF 1 isn't an amazing game. It's better in the gameplay department, which is arguably more important. FNaF 2 just has more of everything else. A deeper story without completely going off the rails, the withered animatronics and mangle, more varied jump scares, and the little custom night desk plushies. Ultimately, sometimes the sequel is better. And with that, the FNaF game Battle Royale is complete. If you're upset or think I skimped on your favorite, sucks to suck. Make your own video. I had to play 6 horror games for this video. I despised every second of it. See ya. Hey Yello, I'm back. I saved Green. Why are you in a glass cube?
Oh, did I not tell you about the yellow box?
No?
I'll explain later. Let's go show our complete lack of costume cohesion to the world.